started. This is our meetup for the Genesee Landlord Association for April. We have 3 good speakers. The first one is Mike Ryder from Building Inspection, and we're going to have him talk first. He did put out some handouts on all the tables, so if you want to look over the handouts, if we need some more, we can get Linda a copy and she will send them out. So Mike Ryder is with the City of Flint Building Inspection Department, been there for a long time. I will turn it over to Mike. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Miss Kirby asked me to stop in, and she said a lot of people have questions about what we may be looking for when we do inspections, so I figured, instead of just everybody raising hands, I'll just bring the sheet. This is what we take with us to your house and what we go over. So if you want, I'll just go over this thing sentence by sentence. And anybody, anybody wants to ask a question, don't do it sentence by sentence. Well, let's just open the floor then. What kind of question does somebody have on a rental inspection? Okay, thank you.
Why don't you go with
So I'm going to have to put Robert with me, and then if you're the guest, you're going to sign it right here, okay?
to start with?
Okay, registering your property is $112. That's a one-time fee. The inspection fee is $225. That's for a single-family home. That's every 3 years. It gets you 2 inspections. Come out if we find something that we need to take care of. It seems like we give plenty of time to do these fixes, we'll say. Yeah.
Say smoke detectors or CO2 detectors needed, or just smoke detectors. And smoke detectors are better after 10-year seal tag.
That's not a requirement to do that. So he's asking about smoke detectors.
If we can have everybody quiet so everybody can hear the questions.
The smoke detectors is required in each bedroom, 1 on each floor.
Stairs, bottom stairs.
Just if you got a second floor, let's say a Cape Cod, so it's a bedroom, you just put one upstairs. Anywhere, I'd be at the top of the steps where the smoke will roll. 1 in the basement. It doesn't matter where. Naturally, you don't want to hide it. There's a specific placement of a smoke detector. It's right in the direction.
I know we have section 8 right above the door, outside the door. One inside the bedroom door, above the door, or outside the bedroom?
You need to be both. 1 inside the bedroom and 1 out. No, I'm just speaking of our inspections. So we just go off the property. That's all. But so you put 1 in each bedroom. Yes.
Yeah, can everybody be quiet so we can hear the questions and the answers?
So smoke detectors, 1 out, 1 inside each bedroom, 1 outside of each sleeping area, which would be the hallway between your bedrooms, and 1 on each floor. Carbon goes outside the bedrooms. Yeah.
I know they have their instructions on what we're using for certain height distance.
You're there, I believe it's like 12 inches off the, or off the corner. You put it on the ceiling or the wall, either one.
I might have more questions.
Sure. Anybody else have any specific?
Why don't you, when they ask a question, why don't you repeat the question so everybody can?
Sure. All right.
Okay, have any other questions there?
How much was the rental inspection?
The inspection itself is $225 for a single family home. Let me see, a duplex is $300. And it goes up if it's an apartment building. I don't have those numbers here with me.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What do you do when you have tenants that don't want an inspection?
That form, the form that you get sent in the mail, just on the back side of it, fill it out. There's an explanation space just right in there. Tenant does not want this home inspected. At least we have something on record of why we're not going out there.
I tried to do that, and it was returned to me.
Well, just send it back in, and I'll make sure it gets processed. Because we want them registered. You know. And there's some issues being worked out legally on all of that, how we go about that. 'Cause that's a new section in that ordinance.
To comply with the state law. It's the new ordinance, the new department of the city ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, they don't say that it's in compliance with state law, but. All right, any other major issues anybody seeing that we're doing to your house or asking of things that you wonder about?
So what is ground plug versus ungrounded plug?
What's that?
Grounded plug versus like a 3-prong and a 2-prong.
As long as you can still have a 2-pronged outlet, where people mess up is put a new 3-prong outlet when it's only a 2-wire system.
So you can't just switch.
Yeah, you don't want to just switch and make it look like it's grounded. So if you can still have the old 2-prong outlets.
Mike, we had an interesting conversation about whether this ordinance covers trailer parks.
Well, I think if they're still licensed through the state, we don't even go in. There's several in the city that aren't licensed anymore, so that's quite a different animal there. I mean, I can go through this if you want, but nothing?
I mean, the big, once you go through the biggest areas of problems, like the electrical, for example.
Well,
What are the things that would make you condemn a home?
no water, no heat. Your chimney looks like I can get a brick to the head any second. Some dangerous something like that. Bars on the windows that I can't open from the inside. I'm not going to condemn your house for that immediately, but that's something that needs fixed pretty quick. A couple days. Just the bedrooms. They just need to be able to release from inside so a kid can get out of it in an emergency. And actually, if your basement wall's caved in, your roof is leaking really bad, that's condemnable. And anything can be fixed, just because we condemn a home doesn't mean you can't fix it.
But if you condemn it, the tenant has to move, right?
Yes.
You got a question back?
Go ahead.
Speaking of condemning, what if there's a house that should be condemned because of the utilities? There's a house in the neighborhood, but the people are still there for years and years?
With living with no utilities?
Or maybe some things they got them on illegally?
Yeah, well, we see it every day. So that's a legal process. Just because we condemn a home doesn't mean somebody's going to move out. And we certainly don't physically go in and remove anybody. That's just going to have to go through the court system and have a judge order that house emptied.
Is that something the city can do and will do?
We certainly, we just picked up a couple more inspectors, thank God. I did this city by myself for quite a few years, and it was a little overwhelming, so I'm happy that they've at least hired a couple more guys. And it's a slow process, the legal process. I'm sure you'll know that. But if we know the address, we'll we'll certainly address the violation of the complaint.
Should we bring it to you versus Blake, probably?
It depends on the issue. I mean, if you know somebody's living in a home that's without utilities, that's us.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
Sure. Yes.
So I've seen several homes where the garages are totally collapsed down to the ground. Is that a blight issue or is that inspection?
It's both. For us, you know, you need a permit to tear your garage down. And so that's always a challenge. Just getting people, the vacant homes in the city, you know, we got to find owners and send them the violations, and it's up to them to take care of it. Now, if it's, you know, if we get the call on it, then like I said, all we can do is issue a citation for them to go to court. And some of them take care of their business and some of them don't. You just got to stay at it.
So that's the process. You get a citation. If they do nothing, it goes to court. And then wait for the court system. Is there any kind of? I'd love to see a way to have a city bulldozer go out and take care of some of these places.
Well,
But
yeah, we used to have our own demolition outfit for the city, and that went away when the state took over. Actually, they laid all that whole department off and got rid of all the equipment. So they're working on it. They're partnering with the land bank again. Get some more of these homes and garages taken care of.
Do you have any sway with the land bank as far as, you know, the properties that are open or
That's all I think.
nuisance?
If you, no, I don't. I'm just saying,
Gotcha.
yes.
Hey, Mike, so what is the permit for to tear down a garage? If it's already collapsed, why do we gotta get a permit? What is the reason for it?
Well, a lot of garages that I see, if you take that garage down and just leave the slab and it's all heaved up, you know, it's a trip hazard. A lot of garages, you know, in the walls there, you're going to trip on it, just, you know, from the down, but the wall's not there. So we make sure you bring the grade up around it if it's needed. I mean, sometimes there's conduit sticking up. People just leave it. So it's our inspection, just make sure you did it right. That's it.
Okay. So what about the houses that don't have no grounds in them, and your inspector makes us put 2 ground rods in 6 foot apart? And he tells us that the state inspector is not right.
Well, that's in NEC, the National Electric Code.
But if there's no grounds in the house, why would you have grounds?
All right, well,
There's-
I'm not the electrical inspector.
I know, but he
Okay.
came out and he was really rude to me.
Do you know why you need a ground anyway?
Yeah, to ground fault everything to the ground. But most of the houses in Flint don't even have a ground rod. Do not have a
Because
ground.
they're copper.
They're still living.
Well, I get it.
But your inspector was really rude.
Which inspector?
Your newest one, he come out and break the code, but I told him I just had 2 state inspections, and he said, state inspections do not know what they're doing. They said, he said it right to my face. They had no clue what they was doing.
Was that recently?
Yeah, he took Jared's.
What address? So he was the electrical inspector, not a rental inspector.
No, electrical. He come out and took Jared's spot.
Wow. And you thought he was rude? What about Jerry? Are you kidding me?
Jared,
This guy hardly says 3 words all day, this guy.
you're right.
So if he said that to you, you absolutely should have put him in. Because I ain't kidding, man. He's like the nicest guy we've had in our city forever.
But me and Jared had.
Wow.
But me and Jared
You
had.
just gave Jared an attaboy. Next time when I talk to him, I'll let him
Well,
know.
you had to go there with Jared.
Wow. All right.
I was just letting you know.
All right.
But I love Jared.
Hey, what address was that? All right.
2515 Warrington.
a couple back there.
What do you got?
They had a furnace in there without a permit or a water heater. How do we resolve that?
Just find, you know, I used to just find a contractor, mechanical, and let them know what happened, and they'll come out. And, if it was me, I'm going to come out and look at what job I can put my name on, and that's it. They'll come in and get a permit, and we'll take a look at it.
Even if they have to back the
Yeah, sure. It happens often.
There was another question over there.
Anybody else? Well,
Do you guys have a listing or something to let us know when it's necessary to pull a permit?
that's going to be right in the building code. I mean, I can tell you.
If you knock out a wall, knock the drywall out, is it necessary to get a permit?
Yes.
Just the one room?
Yes.
No change.
No change. So you had a fire in the bedroom, little fire, so you take the drywall off to replace it, then yeah, you should get a building permit, is required. You know, roofs, you do a roof, if you do siding, new deck, them all need a building permit. You know, like say I wanted to change that fan right there, it's because I don't like it. You don't need a permit to change that. But if I want to put a fan over here where there never was one, then you need an electrical permit. You know, put a new furnace in, mechanical permit. Plumbing, if I want to, put a new sink in that's always right there, I don't need a permit for that. But again, if I want to move and I want to put my sink over here where there never was a sink, then you're going to need a plumbing permit.
If I want to change out a toilet, do I need a permit?
Per our inspector right now, no, you go ahead and change that out. If you put a new bathtub in, yeah, plumbing permit. Because there's just, to me, that bathtub holds enough water to do some damage if it leaks, okay? And if you're going to put a new faucet in the shower, there's some different requirements on those faucets these days that weren't there 40 years ago. Like you rarely can put a double-handled faucet in anymore because it needs a skull guard protection in it. That's why they went single-handle.
So I got a visit from Christie, plumbing inspector.
Yes.
And she told me that this particular house, I had to redo the entire plumbing because it wasn't up to code anymore.
So was the whole house gutted or something when I say that? Was all the drywall off the whole
It was
house?
a house from the land banks.
Okay.
And she said the whole house had to be replumbed.
Okay, I mean, did it? I mean, was there any plumbing left in the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the plumbing was in.
Well, I'd have to, that's a case-by-case situation. I'd have to look at the pictures that we had. I mean, I can't. Most homes that I see, don't have a furnace in it, don't have a water heater, the faucet's cut out of the wall, any copper, it's all gone. And I mean, that's pretty much plumbing of the house. I mean, what was left?
This was, I read Wi-Fi complaint against Christie.
Okay.
And
I haven't heard about it.
And your office turned that into you.
Okay. How long ago?
She's asking me a question. Is that what you filed as a complaint?
Yes.
Okay. This was 3 weeks
And I
ago.
believe we have an ombudsman now too with the city.
This was 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Do you want me to look into it any further, or are you just gonna do the complaint? Because I can write the address down, I don't know what, if you want.
Yeah, I'll get you the address.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody else have any?
Lay it on me, because I ain't never coming back. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
I've heard different stories from different landlords. It seems like there's a different set of rules for a landlord than there is for a resident homeowner. And at what point does, like, you know, these are old houses. In my opinion, everything should get grandfathered in the building code of when the house is built. But it seems like landlords are got to bring things up to more modern condition, and that changes the balance sheet significantly on a home in Flint.
Yeah. Well, years ago, I was calling out furnaces that they looked, you know, like they'd been in a flood, and I'm telling you, you got to get them cleaned and checked by a licensed contractor. And my own office jumped on me about that. You can't tell people to do this, and they asked me, when's the last time I had mine cleaned and checked? I said, I never had it cleaned and checked. He goes, well, then there you go. I said, well, but the people that live in these, rent a home, they don't have a choice, you know. And myself, I want to risk my family's life, I guess, with a bad furnace. So that's, I don't know that that's a good explanation for you. But that's all I got.
If something's like a clear imminent danger, I can understand that. But also see some of the nitpicky stuff, like, you know, you go to the trip hazard stuff. It's expensive to replace the sidewalk, and most people just let it go, but, you know.
Yeah, well, nobody should be calling out a sidewalk on a rental inspection. Now, I wish I could, but that's city property. You know, I know you know, I fixed a couple in front of my house too. So I don't know the legality of it. You trip in front of my house on a city sidewalk, could I be sued for it? I don't know. So to have somebody call out a sidewalk on you?
I use that as an example.
Okay.
I've heard other stuff that's closer to the house, you know, just, I think one of them was a downspout. Well, it was a trip hazard, and
yeah.
And I think, come on, you know, residents just let her fly and those walk around those things.
Yeah, I get that. That's, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you're getting some nitpicky stuff, you know, just call and ask for me, give me the address, and I'll look into it. You know, in a lot of these homes we look at too, the owners never even know there's something wrong with the house. You know, nobody's calling them, letting them know. So sometimes, I'm sure some do. A lot of the information we'll send out that people will call saying, hey, nobody told me that the sink was leaking for a year or whatever. So, you know, do they know? I don't know. So, I mean, sometimes, I know when I did it, if you had it registered, if I get a complaint on your house, I'm calling you. I'm not going right out to your house. I'm going to call and let you know that there's an issue, go take care of it. You know, if I get another complaint in a month, then I will go out to the house. But everybody's different, and hopefully these new guys, because we only have one doing rentals right now.
Christie?
That's Rick. Christie's the plumbing and mechanical inspector. And, all right.
Okay, any other questions? Well, we want to thank Mike for coming tonight, and hopefully he will come back. We didn't give him too hard of a time.
No, Nick, I've worked 23 years here, and I live in the city, so you guys are cool.
Okay, our next speaker is Kelly Beidelman and Kyle Lawlery.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Kyle Lawry from Legal Services of Eastern Michigan. Kelly Beidelman from Center of Civil Justice. We only have a few minutes tonight, but we wanted to talk to you guys about eviction, diversion, and Sarah. First, as someone who has represented tons of tenants and probably worked with plenty of people in this room, I want to thank you guys for your patience and everything that you've been through the last couple of years. I know that the federal EDP and Sarah money and the programs haven't always been the quickest thing, but we appreciate you guys going through that with us and helping people stay housed the best that we can there. With that said, I think we're all aware that Sarah is going to be winding down here at some point. I don't think anybody has a definitive date. There's still money left. They're still taking applications, but we're trying to get out ahead of that because, as many of you know, we discussed a local eviction diversion program prior to the pandemic ever even starting. And we're going to try and get that up and running again, but obviously we need your guys' support. And that's why I wanted to first start by thanking you guys, because I know it's been a tough time the last couple of years. But we hope that you'll still be with us to try and participate in our local eviction diversion program once Sarah does end. And our hope is that that will be a little bit smoother and more efficient because it's locally administered and there's not all of the different federal regulations and state appropriation things like that. So we are going to be back next month to probably talk about it a little more in full, but I think Kelly's going to talk a little bit just about the program and our goals of getting it back up and running.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us tonight, and also thank you for your patience over the last couple of years. I was here a couple of years ago before the pandemic, and we had been talking about the eviction diversion program, and we were just ready to launch it when the pandemic hit. And then it became a statewide rental assistance program, and there were some rules. And, you know, we weren't happy about the 10% haircut, what the state called, in providing rental assistance with that first round. And we were concerned that here we set up this great program, and now the statewide program comes in and kind of changes the game. So I just want to remind you about the process for the eviction diversion program, because we would like to launch it as soon as that federal emergency rental assistance money is gone. So eviction diversion starts with the landlord. If you like your tenant, you want them to stay, you don't want your home to be vacant, but they had a emergency, they had a problem, you know, people are living paycheck to paycheck, they couldn't pay their rent, but you understand the reason, they're a good tenant, they've been a good tenant, you want to keep them, then you can fill out the form at the courthouse, and it'll be served on the tenant to let the tenant know that they can call the HARA, the Center of Hope, and ask for assistance to make up the arrearages that they had. What's different about eviction diversion, if a tenant, back before the federal money, if a tenant wanted assistance, first they had to go to the Department of Health and Human Services and apply. Then they had to go to Salvation Army. Then they had to go to Catholic Charities. Then they had to go to G-Card to try and come up with a full amount of rental arrearages. With this program, we bring all the providers together in the room to meet with the tenant. They figure out how much each of them can pay. Every once in a while, there's a small amount that the tenant needs to pay. But the community partners gather together to provide the rental assistance so that you get the full amount. And in exchange for that, the case is dismissed without a credit damaging judgment, but instead with a dismissal, which you've been familiar with during this process. So again, we'll come back next month. We'll talk about it more specifically, but it's not a mandatory program. It's up to the landlord to decide if they want that tenant to remain, and then we can get the community partners together to provide the rental assistance so that they can stay. All right, question?
So we will have to take them to court then to get a temporary judgment or temporary judgment?
Actually, they can start the rental assistance process with the notice to quit. So no, you don't need to take them to court. So, and that would be better, because even just having the eviction file is really damaging to tenants, even though it might not end in an eviction or even a judgment.
And the other thing is just timing. So if you serve a 7-day on your tenant, and then start the eviction diversion process, you may have some kind of idea of what's going to come out of that money-wise before you ever even have to file, which then you don't have to worry about incurring those costs, trying to get them served, all of those things. So yeah, absolutely. If you are serving a demand for possession, they can start that process through our local EDP right away.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a little concern about when you do get to court and rather than the judge give you 10 days, give the tenant 10 days to pay or leave, the fact that Sarah is going to pay for her, Sarah papers there, that the judge puts off the 10 days forever. And that's not fair to us.
Right, and that's not the eviction diversion program, which is, again, not Sarah. So what we hope is that you serve the demand for possession, the tenant gets the notice that you want them to apply for rental assistance. They contact the Center of Hope. Within a week, they have a tenant meeting. It's determined how much is going to be paid, and typically it will be 100% by the community partners. And then the court date will be scheduled for the entry of the dismissal. And a lot of times, that check, or not check, it'll go through Sigma. You have to register through the state. But you'll get that, sometimes you'll get that money before the court date where you enter the dismissal.
Yeah,
so that's a good concern.
And that's one of the things that we stressed pre-pandemic when we talked about this, is that we didn't want this process to last more than roughly 30 days tops, probably, from the demand for possession to getting their tenant meeting to getting at least a commitment letter that says you will get this much money, and then getting those checks cut. And that's again why I thanked everybody here, because Sarah, I know all of your hands were tied because there was this Supreme Court administrative order that's a mandatory 30-day adjournment. And I know some courts were taking a while to get those entered. So we appreciate the patience in that, and our hope is through our local program that it's going to be a much quicker process. So.
Yes.
So how many late fees are we going to have to wait on? Because with Sarah, we've been waiting a lot of late fees in order to get the full judgment. I'm talking hundreds of dollars for every owner, for every property.
And I think that's going to be specific to the funders, so that's something that we'll try and get for next month when we come. But I think it's going to be specific to each funder who can cover what. But since they're all meeting at the table, if someone can cover them, then that person might be able to say, look, we can cover the $500 in late fees if you guys can cover the $1,000 in rent, and you can cover another $1,000. So I think it's going to be specific to each funder, but we can try and inquire about that and find.
And no end date.
We don't have a specific end date. The only thing I've heard is that they were talking about closing the portal to new applications sometime in June. So that is new applications. I think anybody that has applied, they will still see those ones through, but not accepting new ones. So.
But really, the ones who can talk to that is G-Card and Catholic Charities, and I understand they come to almost every meeting. They're the best ones. They know when the program's going to end and when the funding's going to end.
And I will say, I think they're probably on the same basis as me, because the last meeting I had with any Sarah agency, it's from a Mishta email that just said sometime in June is their estimate. So they said that we would get at least a few weeks notice. So I'm sure if G-Card and Catholic Charities are showing up to meetings, they will relay that as soon as we know when that's coming.
But we just wanted to have a plan in place so that there's help out there. And a lot of times, DHHS will be able to cover the full amount. So, and we don't need to worry about the other community partners.
Yeah, I think the big benefit is getting everybody in the room. I'm sure you've all experienced it where a tenant's trying to get help. And like Kelly said, they're running to DHS, and DHS says, oh, we'll only give you this much money, so then they have to run to the next agency. And that only delays you guys getting your money. So our hope is that be able to put everybody in a room and say, hey, I've got 500 on it, I've got 1,000 on it, that they can walk out that day with that commitment instead of chasing all over town to try and get you guys paid. So.
And you will get a copy of the commitment letter after the tenant meeting.
In the early days, welfare would give the tenant an emergency grant to pay delinquent rent so they wouldn't leave the house. And then, without any reason to complicate it, the government who was writing those emergency relief checks decided to complicate it. You can get applications and all type of things. And this program started out with the best of intentions. Because of the pandemic, we're going to keep people in their house. We're going to make it a little bit more healthy, a little more secure, yada, yada, yada. And we wound up with this program. But the landlord is still taking the person to court. He just can't get the money within 10 days. And it seems to me you guys, not you guys in particular, but in general, can get that money within the 10 days. And 90% of these people are going to qualify. A small amount of them are going to not qualify. And there's really no reason that the landlord has to wait more than that 10-day period of time. And I know landlords that wait months, you know, for what they know they're going to get. But by the time they get that money, they're questioning whether they should have left the tenant in the house.
I know, I think it was just the sheer volume of it. But this program has been going on. I started one out in Macomb, gosh, probably 8 years ago. There's been one in Lansing, there's one in Kalamazoo, and they're working. And the reason they started was a judge in Mason, Michigan would allow the tenant, you know, to go meet with DHHS to get the help. And then the judgment would get entered, the check wouldn't come within the 10 days, then the tenant was being evicted anyway. And the judge said, what's going on? This is stupid. You know, here they're applying, they're gonna get the help, but they can't send out the check timely. So that's kind of how it got started, and it has been successful in other places.
But it's not our fault as the citizens.
No,
It's the government's
of course
fault.
not.
And we shouldn't be working for the government. The government ought to be working for our business.
Well, there was a lot of value.
And I do want to make sure that we're differentiating programs, because I understand the frustration with Sarah and that, but obviously we understand that came from a federal bill to the state level that was appropriated to us, and you know how that goes through government with tacking out every restriction, like you said, to make it as hard as can be through the bureaucracy. The program we'll be launching when Sarah is winding down is strictly through our local partners that have the money. So there's going to be much less red tape. There's much less restrictions on the documentation, all these tedious things that seem to hold up a lot of these Sarah applications. So we appreciate your patience, and we're just asking you to be patient as we get it off the ground. But I think you'll be seeing checks from that much quicker than you've seen through EDP and Sarah at the federal level.
Question in the back.
Is this going to, the local program that you're talking about, is this gonna help with, let's say, repair costs?
No, that would be a separate application that the tenant would make to DHHS for
Repair specifically?
Yeah, well, yeah, if they would repair a rental, so I don't know that that's typically what they do. Typically, repairing a rental is the landlord's responsibility.
But well, I'm talking like tenant cost repairs, like
damage.
Oh, damages. You know, there is a movement to create a fund, so we'll see how that goes. But there has been talk about creating a fund so that if a tenant does leave, leaving damages, that landlords can be compensated.
Oh, so you're talking like after a move out?
Yeah, I think that's what they're working on. So there have been movement on that, but I don't know where it's at or whether it will go forward.
Yeah.
Why do you have the landlord have to start that process? Why wouldn't the tenant start that?
Because we didn't want to make them hated them. They were awful tenants. I just wanted to tell them I hope they can't get help. But these are for people, these are to keep somebody housed, to keep your house not being vacant, and then to have it empty while you're looking for another tenant.
And I think we're seeing this now with the way courts are holding up things, seeing that people have applied for stuff. If we leave that to the tenant and they apply and you say, well, I never wanted to be a part of this program, you might run into a judge that's like, well, they're already getting assistance and they said they'd help you, so why should I enter a judgment against you? So we want it to be in your hands to be voluntary, to say, look, you know, this is a good tenant, they've fallen on hard time, I want them to get help, so I'll sign up for this program to do that. It's not that there becomes that much more work for you. I think, do we still have the application that we can bring next month?
Yes.
The stuff required from you is I think it's less than the current.
It
Sarah
is. It's
program.
a 6-month rental history.
Yeah, rental history. So your ledger.
When the
fill
house
out a
was
form,
built.
Yeah, like when the house was built. You got to apply for the Sigma number if you don't already have one from DHS to pay out. But it's much less tedious than that whole application for Sarah.
Yes.
Is this program envisioned to be like a 1-month emergency bridge, or is it something that tenants are going to wait 3 months without payments and then come and ask for 3 months plus 3 more months?
So, I mean, ideally they would be getting in right away. It's easier for funders, obviously, to handle 1 month at a time. I think some of that's going to depend on when demand for possessions are served. You know, if landlords are on top of it and serve a demand for possession and say, hey, here's the landlord form for EDP, get down to the HARA, so they can send you an appointment, then it may be just one at a time. But if you have a tenant that you were trying to work with and got a couple months behind, our funders, I know of at least up to 6 months. I think we might have a year somewhere too, right?
I think with the regular funding that DHHS and other providers have, I think DHHS can go 3 months in arrears.
I'm just thinking of the top end. I know we have at least one funder that can cover 6 months.
Okay,
so,
all right. And yeah, it depends. Some
then,
funders have rental assistance for people with HIV/AIDS. Some funders have rental assistance for people that are veterans. Some funders have rental assistance for anybody. So there's different pots of money, different restrictions.
Some can do 3 months, some can do 6 months, and that's the benefit of having them all at the table. Because if you go somewhere and someone commits to that and they have a 6-month window, you go somewhere else and like, oh, well, you've already been committed for this, but I can't do it. If you get the person that only does the 3 months up front, they can say, hey, look, we'll do our 3 months, then you do the additional months to make sure we're maximizing the benefits that are out there as well. So that's the big perk to this, is having everybody in the room so we know that we're maximizing the potential for everyone.
So just to follow up on that question, I think what they're saying, so like I have a habitual, like I've had a girl in a property for 2 years, she's paid 1 month's rent. Literally the judge signed a writ 4 weeks ago and it magically disappeared. So she just keeps reapplying for Sarah, and I know it's a different program, but we don't want to keep rewarding habitual. I'm following part of my law. I'm not trying to be mean. I know it happens, but
that's a question we'll take back to our providers. But some of them may not be able to give assistance more than once in a year, or whatever. And when we had a similar program. Lighthouse had one in Oakland County. They tracked it and they didn't see any duplicates because they thought, oh great, we're going to help once a year and we're going to see them once every year because they know that they can get this help, and they didn't find that anybody was playing the game. But you're always going to find people that do that. So.
I'm a little confused. Are you guys through Sarah?
No, I'm with the Center for Civil Justice. We're a nonprofit law firm that advocates on behalf of people living in poverty.
Yep, and I'm from Legal Service of Eastern Michigan. We both sit on the committee for the COC, the CQI committee that has been tasked with starting the eviction diversion pre-pandemic. So it's strictly local here. With a bunch of community organizations that have gotten together.
And these are our mystery guests.
So if I have a tenant in mind, I'm the landlord supposed to call you?
What you do when you fill out the demand for possession, you will have the flyer has the QR code where you can get the Landlord Questionnaire, and you fill that out. And you serve that on the tenant with the demand for possession. And then you let the tenant know there's this program you can apply for if you want to stay and you want to get help.
And all that information will be on there for the tenant to who to contact and how to set that.
Go ahead.
This situation I resolved already, but so you have a tenant that's on Section 8. And I had the person call me and say, why should I have to pay my $134? I'm not gonna pay that.
But you did get all your money from the government, except for the 134. And a lot of landlords didn't get any money through the whole pandemic.
But I did a favor for somebody, so I gave $800 a month rent, $570, and then you get $400. So that doesn't sound like a win for me. because I gotta have property taxes and property insurance and then the repairs and so. But the thing is, so the person doesn't pay that. And my fault, I don't wanna get somebody screwed up in Section 8 for $134, you know what I mean? I don't wanna make them lose their Section 8 for that. And so they felt very comfortable with knowing that. And so they had an $800 a month rent for free on our tax dollar. I got paid $434 a month. I don't think that's fair. See, there's a lot of things that go on where I believe in advocacy for people that don't have money and such. I do believe in it, but there are people that utilize that, and the landlord, you know, you've done your due diligence, right? You keep your property up, you make sure things are in code, you spend a lot of money on this house, and people use it as, you know, they don't care. And so I believe in the advocacy systems, but us as landlords, it seems like we get pushed back on. You know, we're asked to accept a lot, losses, time, aggravation. And in between, like maybe your tenant, you know, they play the game, and it's like, you know, after a while, it's like you just want them out because they're going to use one agency after another, and they're damaging your unit. They're doing all these things, and in your head, maybe not you, but me, you think, hey, look, I'll pay the damages, I'll repair anything to get rid of these people, and they're looked at as a victim. And really, the landlord being.
And again, this is not a mandatory program, and I'm sorry that happened, but thank you for renting to a person on a voucher, because a lot of times landlords won't, and there's a lack of affordable housing as it is, but to be rejected and to be homeless is probably not a fun thing.
That's why I couldn't do that.
Thank you. Question back there?
I have a question. You talked about a lot of different forms and stuff. What's the website? Where do we find all these forms at?
We're going to come back next month and we're going to talk, because we don't have a start date yet, but we just wanted to bring it back up, let you know that we're doing this planning, and answer some questions. No, we can get you the landlord questionnaire, and you can make a stack.
I think to answer your question, there are going to be paper, but there's also going to be a QR code that's going to get you a link to be able to do it from a PDF online. So you don't have to have a stack of paper sitting in your office or whatever. You'll be able to just print that off at your leisure off the website.
We'll have tenants come in and ask them about it. Once they go to this website, what website?
All right.
Yep.
We'll get one.
Yeah, we'll make sure you have that with the applications and the QR code as we get closer to the date.
I don't have a question, I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
We know what tenants that we like, and we like to help them. And you're getting not tax dollars, and you help them get it to the right place, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
All right, we'll see you next month.
Okay, I messed up the schedule a little bit, but we're gonna have Yvonne Davis from G-Card come up, and she will.
Okay, today I just planned on giving you a little bit of numbers, and just planned on giving you a few numbers and answering a few questions if I can. I'm very new to this position, so I can answer as many questions as I can, and all those questions that I can't answer, I will find you an answer and I'll bring it to you next meeting. So, just for the month of April in utilities alone, we did $323,200. For rent, we spent almost $2 million just in 1 month. And we processed 440 apps. Mind you, we only had 5 workers. We only had 5 employees. So we went from a full staff of 12 people to 5 people. And we did early on have to wait a month. We had to wait for a month. The federal government required that we wait, give the tenant and the landlord a month to, instead of sarcastically, because I meant it like that, a whole month to turn in their documents in order to be processed. And finally, we were like, we're holding on to these stacks of documents and nobody's doing anything. And so now that process is just 1 week. They have 7 days to give us the documents. We can deny them for being unresponsive. A lot of that happens when we don't have the correct email address or phone number for the landlord. When the portion of the landlord portion of the application has not been filled out, we have to wait for the tenant to get the contact information for the landlord so we can contact them. Normally, if we have the landlord information, we can tell on the tenant, and then the landlord can get on them and we can get what we need. But for the most part, we are just short-staffed, and so we have 1,110 applications that have been submitted. They're only in the submitted stats, like nobody's even looked at them. And so we have under review 234 apps. That only means that they've been assigned to a worker. Doesn't mean that they've looked at them. And so we have 92 apps that are processing. That means they're waiting for me to go through every single application, and I have to make sure that everything is correct by federal standards before I can put an approval stamp on them. And so we have 92 of them in process. We have 73 applications that are out there that need processing. And we have approved 2019 applications to date. And all in total, we have 5,174 applications out there, again, with 5 workers. And so I just wanted the landlords who are not wanting to participate, there's a policy that states that if you are evicting the landlord for something other than non-payment, then that process is okay. But if you're evicting them for non-payment and the tenant is still in the house, still needing money, and you don't want to participate, we pay the tenant. We pay the tenant. And so to date, we have 3 tenants that have run off with all the money. So I just wanted for landlords to consider that, for the small amount of time that it takes to fill out the paperwork, and I don't know for whatever reason landlords don't want to participate. I can understand a large complex or, landlords who have a large amount of properties having to fill out that paperwork over and over again. But the tenants are now starting to get wise to, they can just take the money and move somewhere else, thousands of dollars. So we have one worker who only works legal services cases. She has 76 cases right now in queue. She just works legal services cases. She has 14 cases that are not even in the system, and she does that all alone. So she doesn't get the standard number of cases. And the problem that we're running into now, and I know you guys got to take them to court to get your money, but is that we're getting overwhelmed with court judgments. And so court judgments take priority over other cases. We've been stuck on December's cases for probably about 2 months or more because we can't get to them. Because we have to take every day, like yesterday and today, we took in 23 court judgments. And it was only one worker who was doing the court judgments, and all the other workers were working on the cases that were in queue. And now I have to spread them out between 3 workers because they're coming in so often. And so those cases take priority. So all the other cases are on the back burner. And I'm not going to say it's not fair, but it's kind of not fair. So, because if you don't intend to put the worker out, the tenant out, then, we should have an opportunity to get the cases taken care of. So right now we have to stop what we're doing, take the crisis cases and get the money paid. Some of the landlords never intend to evict the person. They just get an opportunity to get their money right away. But go ahead. I can hardly hear you.
I have a lot of landlord owner applications out there with key cards that I know that my tenants have put in their portion as well. From way back when.
Right.
And I still don't have any kind of process on that.
Right.
So are you saying that at some point they're able to get money just sent to them so then that is not getting paid to their rent necessarily?
I don't understand exactly what you're saying.
You just said something about the tenants can get money without landlords putting in an application.
If the landlord has decided that they're not going to participate, there are landlords that say, I'm not doing anything. I'm not filling out any applications. I'm not giving you my ID. And then we have to service the tenant, and we pay the tenant. And there are a lot of cases where the tenant has given the money to the landlord like they're supposed to. But there are some cases where now the tenants are running off with the money. They're running off with the money and they just move. They just pack up and get the check and they just go.
Are you still quite behind with that?
We are on December's applications and it is almost May. And so what I've noticed in working for other agencies is there's always an influx of assistance in the month of December because of Christmas. So we probably had more applications in the month of December than we did in any other month. But we're having a hard time getting through them because we have judgments coming in. We have one worker who does only legal services, and then we're having to work these judgments that are coming in every day.
Are you guys hiring?
We are, and it's quite the process to get in. It's quite, and so we have had many prospects in working for G-Card, but they have to pass the drug screen, the background check. And so sometimes they have all the qualities and you get to that part and they don't pass. And so we just got one new person, and so we are right now having her just upload applications because the portal is going to shut down sometime in June, and we're not quite sure of the date as well. And so we're trying to we had almost 300 applications, paper applications that the clients were turning in. And so we are now, hope everyone's happy about this one. So we are now working on Saturdays. We're working half shifts on Saturdays just to try to catch up now. So we have 150 of those applications that we got uploaded just last Saturday alone. So I'm hoping that this Saturday we'll get them all uploaded and into the system before the deadline date. That's our goal. And then we can spend our Saturdays actually working cases and not uploading applications. But our goal is to try to get caught up. Anyway.
You got two back there.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, Ms. Davis, is what you're saying is that these landlords who are taking these people to court knowing that they're not going to evict them, put the other landlords on the back burner?
We put all the other clients on the back
All the
burner.
other clients are going on the back burner?
Absolutely.
Because these landlords are taking people to court knowing that they're just spending that little money to take them to court?
Absolutely.
And knowing that they're not going to evict them anyway, they just want their money first?
Yes.
So they're putting all of us on the back burner?
And we even had one of the tenants told one of our workers that they have tenants now that are asking for the judgment so they can get it over with.
So they can get their money first?
So they can get their
And
money,
leave us
yeah.
on the back burner when we've had clients in the queue since December?
Absolutely.
And they just put their clients in the queue in March?
That's absolutely. And so we've had tenants that come in the door. They have an application, they have an appointment to put in an application. They come in with a judgment, fill out an application that day, and they go right to the front of the line.
Is there anything we can do to rectify that? Because that's so unfair to the rest of us who are
And
trying to
so
get our money.
the whole point of that is to make sure that no one gets evicted. But it's getting out of hand a little bit. Yes, it's getting a little bit out of hand. And so we still have to work those cases because they are a priority. And so we only know about the eviction status. Today, I got 7 just from one apartment complex.
7 evictions?
7 evictions from one apartment complex.
And their people just went into the queue this month, and we've been waiting since December.
Absolutely, that's what happens.
Is there anything that we can do to rectify that?
We haven't come up with anything yet. So right now, we just put them on the back burner, and then when we get done with the judgments, which seem to be never ending now.
Is there a way we can start from the back and work our way to
And so we have to work them in the order submitted, and that's the policy now, that we have to work them in the order submitted, which is why we're still on December. And so we pull all the paper apps out of the drawer and make sure we uploaded all of December applications. And then I assign all of the December apps to people, to the workers. And these are the same workers that are having to not work their December cases to work 4 or 5 judgments that come in that day.
Is there anything that we as landlords can do to assist with that, so that we can get our money since we've been working?
You know what? I don't even have an answer for that, but I will take it to. I will take it to the administrators to say that there was a problem that was brought to my attention about the landlords not getting their money put in. And so there are a lot of landlords that said, you know, I don't want to go to the court process. I don't want to take you to the court process. I don't want to have you this bad report on your credit. That's because you've been a good tenant, you know. And so basically that's the only way to get to the front of the line, but it is putting everyone else on the back burner.
We had another question back there.
So, I'm sorry, I know we've talked about this already, but you were saying that some tenants can just walk away with the money if the landlord doesn't participate. So if the tenant is putting in their application, do you make an attempt to find the landlord? I mean, so there
Absolutely. I tell the staff members that no, they can't. We're not playing that game. And so we do a BSNA registered deeds to find out who the owner of the house is. I want an ID. At least I want to see the landlord's ID, so that I know I'm talking to the person that I'm supposed to be talking to. And so there has to be some sort of contact with the landlord. We have to verify the landlord is who he says he is, because I don't want them putting their friend on the phone and having to talk to them and say, I don't want to participate. That has happened. They try it all the time, every day.
So then I just want to be clear, because I mean
that happens. We absolutely make sure, and it's mostly happened with apartment complexes that don't want to participate. So we know exactly who they are. And so I've only had one instance right now where they just walked away with a single housing landlord. So, but the other ones were from apartment complexes, and they just packed up and moved. And probably with $7,000 or $8,000, it was a windfall.
From the point that you spoke about that, the judgments that come in, how long does it take for you to look at the application and enter them into the computer? Because I had a judgment against a tenant that was 8, 10, 12 months behind. And we put in the application together in January. And this has a judgment, you know, I allowed it to lapse. It didn't bother with the writ, waiting for your program. And I've called your office, or I've had a representative call your office 4 weeks in a row, and spoken to yourself personally, and every single time was told, we have nothing for you or this gentleman, we don't know anything about this. And then I call the tenant and say, like, what happened? Because there was an application went in November. There was an application that went in January, when we were told in November and December there was nothing. So then in January I said, I'm sorry, I can't wait anymore. So I'm going to have to go through. And the tenant understood my position, but I'm giving away a year's worth of rent in a premium neighborhood for somebody that lost his job for 2 years.
Right.
And G-Card 3 times, but we're on our third application to the point that there's a judgment there, and only out of my own personal guilt about putting a family on the street is he still in the home.
Yes.
And I have no clue if you even have the application. 4 weeks in a row now, we've called and asked, and there's nothing. For the third application, the first one was electronic, the second one he swore he did it personally, and the third one we did it together. So what's the answer?
And so, and I personally, so they call the front desk. They normally call the front desk. And so there are a lot of landlords who have my phone number.
I was given your number directly.
Right. And so once I speak with you, I don't stop looking for that tenant until I lay eyes on that application. And sometimes they're stuck in the call center. But I find it because sometimes there's instances where it's stuck in cyberspace, and the tenant or the landlord have not completed the application and hit that submit button. They have not gotten a congratulations, we have accepted your application. I have to go into the call center, find that application, and then resend the link so that they can complete that application.
That was the explanation for the first 2 attempts, but the third one, there was an appointment made by the tenant. The tenant went and attended in person, documents in hand, and while sitting in front of a representative, called me on the phone, and I emailed the gentleman the person that was on the other end of the phone, gave me their email at G-Card, and I sent it right then and there, because I wasn't physically in the state to be sitting in the building with them. So there's no call center, there's no nothing, but it's still, as of last week, when I had the lady that works for me call you, it doesn't exist.
the application doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
And
He
so-
told us that he's just not there.
So the tenant, and the
it's
tenant
in the
called you
box.
when
This
they,
isn't a judgment.
right. So I just
What
can't.
can you do to help me today?
You can call me. I can give you my number, and you can call me, and I will lay eyes on that application. Because if you leave it, and so, in all honesty, if you leave it to the tenant, it could have been that the tenant didn't have everything they needed, and we gave them the application back. We do not accept incomplete applications, because then we're sitting around waiting to put together puzzle pieces.
I attended the meeting on the phone, live, while the tenant was sitting in your building. Yes, sir, you have
And you sent
everything you
it,
need.
you sent your information to whom?
Whatever the email, I don't know off the top of my head, the email was provided to me during that
Okay.
phone call, and while we were talking, I sent the email.
Okay, I will investigate that when I get back
So
to
it
you.
doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. And I will give your number, my number before I leave, and I will lay eyes on your application and let you know what the status of it is.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Got one back there.
I had a tenant, and they were, they couldn't get evicted because of the pandemic. And they wasn't able to put the water in their name. Then they said the water can be cut off. They never paid the bill, and I'm left with a giant water bill.
And so, if the lease states that the tenant is responsible for the water and the water is in your name, we will still pay the water bill.
Because they applied for the program. They got the program one time, and the next time they just said, we ain't gonna do nothing, do stuff.
So here's the deal. Once the tenant moves out of the house, they are no longer eligible for the program. Once they move, they are no longer eligible. Even if they have an application in and they have moved, they are no longer eligible for the program.
Yeah, they left me with the water bill.
Okay, we got any other questions here? I'm sure Yvonne will stick around a little while and maybe answer a few questions. We can stay here for a few minutes. We got a little food left. But I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. It was a very informative meeting. We had 60-something people here, which is double what we normally get. So thank you very much for coming.
Do we know how much funds are left and how long they might last?
I don't. That's the one question that I was not able to answer because the finance person was in an audit meeting.